Hello everyone and welcome back to the AOR F1 2013 Season 8 Championship. It's round 1, it's the Australian Grand Prix. My name's Matthew Gallagher and after a very intense last race at Brazil for Season 7, I reckon Season 8 is going to be even better. Noble 299 is not racing this season, which means the championship is up for grabs and it is going to be bigger and better than ever. And joining me once again in the commentary box is Scott Woodwiss.
Thank you very much, Matt. And yes, as you said, with Noble missing, the king of the hill in terms of the F1 2013 AOR Championship is up for grabs. And of course, once again, as we had in the past couple of seasons, arguably the two strongest drivers are in the same team, which could make things intriguing. But I seriously hope this season isn't an anti-climax, because we've got some very talented drivers coming up from GP2, a lot of interesting driver combinations. I reckon this could be the makings of a great season, and I hope that this first race does not disappoint, and it is a precursor of things to come.
The Australian Grand Prix has always proved to be a great season opener. Season 7, Noble 299 took the victory from xMattyG in second, with TRL Limitless finishing in third place. Second and third are teammates for this season, with the Season 7 pole position going to Noble 299 with a 121.2. So let's find out what happened in qualifying for round 1, the Australian Grand Prix.
The first qualifying comparison of the season features the very well-known TRL Limitless in the Red Bull and newcomer Citizen in the Sauber. Limitless dropping down to 4th gear for turn 1 while Citizen using 3rd gear and a bit of curves at the exit of turn 2. Limitless can't use any curves, however, as it appears to be broken. Both drivers braking just after the 100-meter board for turn 3 down to 1st gear and feeding the car nicely to the right to open up turn 4 and then accelerating full throttle through turn 5, and at the end of sector 1 we can see that it is Citizen who is already up by a tenth or two ahead of Limitless. Once again, the two drivers using different gears, as Limitless uses 3rd gear for turn 6 and Citizen using 2nd gear, accelerating hard out of turn 7 and through turn 8 and spotting the braking point nicely for turn 9, and being careful not to let the car run out too wide to get the best exit for the run down towards the high speed turns 11 and 12. Citizen uses about 30% of his curves, while Limitless has to settle for rich mix. Again, the two drivers opting to use different gears, as we see Citizen drop down to 5th gear, and at the split maintains his slight advantage over Limitless through sector 2. As the drivers approach turn 13, they are ever mindful of the gravel traps in sector 3 and taking a good line to ensure they don't throw away their lap. Turn 14 is just a slight lift, with Citizen using just a bit more of the track as the two drivers brake hard for the penultimate corner and then feed the car to the left to open up the final corner and carry as much speed onto the start-finish straight as possible. In the end, Citizen edges out Limitless by less than a tenth, and TRL Rosberg takes pole position with a 121.3 in the Marussia. And now back to Scott for your full grid overview.
Thank you very much, Justin, for that qualifying comparison. Now let's take a look at the grid for the opening round of Season 8 of the AOR F1 2013 League. And it is, as you saw, TRL Rosberg on pole position in the Marussia by a tenth of a second from TRL Minty, who has moved from Toro Rosso to Ferrari. Row 2 sees xMattyG now moving from Williams to Red Bull, alongside an incredibly impressive opening qualifying session for Citizen 4, as he lines up 4th in the Sauber, ahead of TRL Limitless in the 2nd Red Bull alongside xMattyG in that team. And coming back in 6th after a long absence, KPTK announces his return with a bang, 6th place on the grid on Row 3. Great effort from him. Row 4 sees the Constants moving from Sauber to Caterham alongside KR Martin, formerly known as TRL Martin, in the 2nd Marussia, while Ricky C, now at Mercedes, and the 2nd French debutant iXter in the 2nd Sauber, rounding out the top 10. Best of the rest in 11th is the 2nd Mercedes of Randy McScrandy, the first driver to start on the prime tyres, alongside Leobot, the Swede, in the first of the Toro Rossos. Trace 92, now in the 2nd Caterham alongside the Constantine, starts in 13th place ahead of another new debutant. It's Powerpuff in the 2nd Toro Rosso. He is also on the medium compound tyres. And rounding out the back of the grid, it's TRL Maisie in the 2nd Ferrari, also on the prime tyres, and Fisi Fan 91 in the 2nd Williams. Didn't have the best qualifying, but he will start from the back of the grid with the option tyres as well. 16 drivers from 7 different nations, all covered by less than a second, one of the only times that's ever happened in AOR history. The grid is all set. We're all ready for a thrilling season opener. Let's head out to the grid for the first race of Season 8 here in Melbourne.
It's race time. It's the Australian Grand Prix. It's xMattyG and RapidScorpion commentating for you today on another clear weather, no % chance of rain race for the season opener. It's round one. There's no Noble on the grid, but there are 16 very hungry drivers to get as many points as possible to start off their season with a bang. We've got quite a few point of views as well this season, Scott. And, well, 6 rookies to the league as well. Anyone that's taken your eye?
Well, of course, the qualifying performance of Citizen 4 up in 4th position definitely is going to be one to watch, but these guys know exactly what's going to happen. The tension is rising, of course, so will be the revs in the moment. Only thing left for me to say before we get the lights underway, and that is, gentlemen, let's go to war. AOR all over again, getting ready for the lights. This could be an electric season. I hope it doesn't disappoint. Here we go.
Here come the lights. We've got 5 lights. Season 8 is underway. And we're aboard with Kerry in 6th place. KPTK getting a good start in the Williams. And Citizen getting a brilliant start on xMattyG down towards turn 1. Almost up into 3rd place. Maddie turning into the corner. And Citizen getting slightly touched there. And down into 5th now. And someone's gone up to 4th. I can't quite see who that is. And it's actually Limitless who's gone up to 4th. And Matty now looking around the outside of Rosberg. Down towards turn 3. Can he make this one stick? Yes, he can. Very similar to what he did to Big Shot last season, in fact. And up into 2nd place. And now Leobot in 9th and Ricky in 10th position. Not a great qualifying from him, but he is going to have to try and make his way through the field as quickly as possible. We're now on board with Matty in 2nd place. Minty's gone wide from the lead, and it looks like he's got a really bad exit off of the grass. And Matty looking to the outside now, used all of his curves down towards this right-hander, and he has taken the lead of this Australian Grand Prix from 3rd on the grid. And this is exactly what he wanted, to make a statement, especially as his arch nemesis Limitless is in the same team as him. And that is KPTK making a huge mistake, and Ricky getting very close to the wall as well with Leobot. They're almost 3 abreast going towards this fast left-right. Unfortunately, no front wing damage. And who's that? That's Ricky's teammate Randy, steaming through and up into 10th as well. And Exeter as well. There's cars everywhere. Everyone is overtaking everybody. They are so hungry. And it looks like there's been slight contact from Exeter to Randy. And both the Mercedes are round. They have gone into the wall. I think Randy's lost his wing. Fisi's now round as well. Exeter's round. They're all round. Ricky's got a penalty somehow out of all of that. And that is not what we like to see from turn 13. That has been absolute carnage, and it is from one of the rookies, Exeter, looking like he was the one that caused that incident, and it was carnage. I think Fizz's race is ruined, Exeter's race is definitely ruined, and I'm pretty sure Randy lost his wing as well, but we may well get another replay of that. But Scott, wowee, lap 1, and that is not what we want to see.
We said these guys were hungry, but that's a little bit too far from those guys, and Mercedes must be absolutely kicking themselves that both their cars came together on the first lap of the season, of all times to do so. Rule 1 of racing, never take your teammates out, and those guys have committed the absolute cardinal sin. Looking back now from KPTK, he's new back to the league after several seasons away, and he didn't get the best of starts. So one guy that did, Constance, with an absolute flyer in that Caterham to get up to 5th position. He is up there, really showing some form already, as now KPTK hounds the Marussia. Of course, Marussia back in the championship, as are, of course, Mercedes as well. So good to see Marussia already up at the front, and they've got 2 very, very capable drivers in both Martin and Rosberg. But this man, xMattyG, well, of course, now Noble's out of the way. It's now, you would have thought, a clear run for Matty to have a shot at the title. But, of course, we have some very talented drivers. Nonetheless, of course, the man who was battling so hard for 2nd in the championship last season, TRL Limitless, they were rivals last season. Now they're teammates. It's actually been an incredible dynamic that should develop throughout the season. A Citizen now is under attack from Constance for 5th position. This guy really did impress in qualifying, 4th place on his opening qualifying session in the F1 League from GP2. And he really has taken to this league pretty well, and his competition really has upped his game to try and keep the level of competition. As Ricky dives to the pits, obviously all is not well still at Mercedes, and back with KPTK and also with Fisi. So mixed fortunes at the moment for the 2 Williams cars, as Fisi is back in 15th place, and that's a very early stop then for Ricky as he bolts on the prime tyres, and that's only on lap 2, so he's going for an early strategy to change things around. Well, let's take a quick look at the start then. So this is Matty's point of view. Fairly clean launch from the inside. Menti got a slightly better getaway on the inside, which allowed him to pull alongside. Assistant got a pretty rapid getaway himself in the Sauber, but Matty covers the inside line, keeps his nose in front, and just holds on for the moment, and then gets the run down towards turn 3 on the outside of the Marussia and under brakes and gets to. This is the view from KPTK. Started 6th, Limitless on his outside. Limitless goes a little bit too deep and goes around the outside of the corner. System gets a little bit too wide and almost loses it completely. And that means that Constance storms up, getting past 2 cars. And Leobot then with a start from 12th, the Swede in the Toro Rosso. And we'll see his point of view down towards turn 1. Let's see if he comes under brakes. Couple of moves he's made up past, of course, Randy and also as well. So pretty frantic off the start, and Trace be making moves as well. But these guys, it all kept perfectly same, Matt, until they got to turn 13, and then it was just absolute carnage.
Yeah, you would have expected the incident to happen down potentially into turn 1 or maybe even turn 3, as that's the first proper hard braking point for the drivers to deal with, as we see the replay of Matty taking the lead from Minty, who I don't think's actually led a race before, and you could tell as he went straight into the gravel almost and lost the lead pretty much straight away after inheriting it from Rosberg off the start. But yeah, it was very interesting to see. It was turn 13 that was the one that caused the incident. It was because of Exeter getting really... I'm not too sure. I don't know. There it is. So Randy's got a little bit of a touch from Exeter from behind, which has caused both the teammates and Mercedes to just crash into each other. And there's two cars coming across, and thank the Lord they have ghosted on Ricky's screen. Otherwise, he could have said goodbye to a front wheel, let alone a front wing. And so there's the contact from Exeter. Causes Randy and Ricky to spin, and Exeter goes flying round as well, which you would kind of... Well, considering he caused the incident, I guess he kind of deserved that. But Powerpuff, I think, comes out of this unscathed somehow, manages to find a gap and gets through and up into 10th place from 13th. So he's thinking, thank you very much, gents. Tracy92 almost got away with it, but then caught on the back end and was down to 12th. And yeah, it's almost as if the two Mercedes were synchronised spinning there. Fisi almost got away with it as well, but Trace coming across the track meant that Fisi got caught up as well, meaning he is down into 16th place and last position. I mean, he started last from qualifying. He was under a second off pole, but started last. And here we go. The 10-second time penalty awarded to Ricky C has been reversed by the stewards, which you would expect, considering I don't think he did anything wrong apart from getting caught up. So yeah, he's lost his penalty, so that's good, and he can continue to potentially try and pick up a few points. As we know, Ricky, the rapid Irishman from last season, has the pace to challenge up the front. So we'll see. Be very interesting to see with 26 laps to go where he comes at the end of the race. And who's that peeling into the pits? That is KR Martin, formerly TRL Martin, coming into the pits, and so is Limitless. So there's a few drivers coming into the pits already, and I think what we're going to be expecting to see is a 3-stop strategy. 3 primes is, I think, the optimum strategy, but some people may well want to push it an extra few laps and try and get an extra option stint in rather than the primes, as Learbot is now going up the inside of Citizen and up into 5th place. These two, both new to F1, are fighting very hard indeed, and Citizen comes back at Learbot and takes 5th place. So Citizen not lying down and letting people go past. He's well, although he did get slightly bullied, I guess, at the start from Matty and Limitless, he's maintaining 5th position pretty strongly, Scott.
Yeah, it's good to see, intriguingly, that you get a great chance to see Citizen's racecraft here, because of course these two know each other, Citizen and Learbot, from GP2, so they're no strangers to each other. Now they've moved up to F1, now we can see exactly what they're made of here, and Learbot might be just lining up Citizen down this back straight towards this awesome sequence of corners, the left right of turns 11 and 12. Such a high speed corner, you flick it down to 5th gear on the apex, about 150 miles an hour, grabs 6th on the exit, and now Learbot with a fantastic run. The Swede pulls alongside the Frenchman in the Sauber, and on straight line speed alone gets himself down the outside into turn 13 and gets the move done to move into P5. Great move there from those two, and clean racing also, as Matty is quickly into the pits on lap 4. So race leader is interchanged to his first set of prime tyres, so of course he's also going on a free stopper. As also we see Learbot into the pits for Toro Rosso also. Red Bull boys go to work, and away he goes, as Ferrari mechanics are out for, I believe it must be TRL Minty as well. And this is also, I can see, that is the Toro Rosso guys then going to, and that's the Marussia guys in fact, and they're going to work on, I think that must be TRL Rosberg as well. So the front runners all coming for pit stops, as is KPTK. And Williams having to make do with the fact they don't have, in all fairness, don't have the two fastest drivers in the team. Again, there's some extreme lag there from Rosberg as his car goes bouncing up and down. And that allows for the Marussia to see Limitless stream past. Looks like Limitless has managed to leapfrog Rosberg in the pit stops, as that he comes back into P8, and he's now chasing after Minty. So it's now Ferrari 7th, on track at least, then Red Bull 8th, and Marussia in 9th position. A Citizen, in his first ever F1 event, now leads the race, but for how much longer? Because here comes his fellow GP2 graduate, Powerpuff, into Rich Mix 3 with Kurz. Now down the back straight they come. And look at that, again, straight line speed. Toro Rosso's in good form today, both Learbot and Powerpuff sailing past Citizen, so whether or not Citizen is just still trying to adjust to it, but on his raw pace, his racecraft is brilliant, his pace is good over a single lap, but his race pace just seems to work on that little bit, and of course I'm sure that as the season goes on, he and all these GP2 rookies will progress. But good to see, intriguingly, they've also got Trace me up in 3rd place, so an interesting top 3 so far, but of course the front runners have made their pit stops, and all will shake out once the first round of stops is done, and we head towards the middle part of the race.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Citizen still out at the moment as Trace comes into the pits at the end of lap 5, and it looks like, if I'm having a look at the minimap there, Citizen has carried on for another lap, which means that he must be trying a 2-stop strategy, which I don't think was in the minds of any of the drivers coming into this race, but he's carried on in second place behind Powerpuff, who started on the primes. Trace now switches to the prime tyres in the Caterham, and I'm hoping to see a better season from Trace after some disappointing races purely down to lack of practice. As Citizen now on lap 6 on those options, the super softs, bear in mind, have just absolutely fallen off the cliff, and I wouldn't be surprised if these drivers that are 5-10 seconds behind start to rake in that gap very quickly indeed, because the super softs really are not meant to last 6 laps round here. I think, well, you saw Ricky pit at the end of lap 2, so I think the optimum lap was lap 4, and then to go for maybe two 8-lap stints on the primes and then one 9-lap stint. But it'll be interesting to see as Matty now uses all of his curves to get past Randy. That's a crucial move to get past the Mercedes driver who is running on the prime tyre at the moment, because he's trying to edge out that gap to Minty and Limitless behind, who are no slouches as we saw from qualifying. And Matty still, well, in a net first place at the moment when everybody is pitted. He's 4.8 seconds behind TRL Maisie, who's also yet to pit. And Citizen now, let's have a look as he just struggles down to 3rd gear through that right-hander. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him slide out through this left-hander. Yep, there we go, straight onto the grass. In fact, he's got no grip. It's like driving on ice as he now comes into the pits, and he's even going to struggle with that at about 60 miles an hour. But he finally gets into the pits, but really he's lost so much time doing that, and I'm pretty sure a 2-stop strategy is not the way to go this afternoon, as KPTK is right behind Martin coming around the final corner, as we now see Citizen go onto some fresh tyres, which I'm sure he is praising the Lord that they are now on his car. And it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. I'm pretty sure he's going to be near the back here, Scott, as he's tried to risk it with the 2-stop strategy, which may well end up working towards the end of the race, because obviously he's got to do one less stop, but his tyres are going to be ruined.
Well, it all depends now. Of course, we get to see an example of how Citizen manages those tyres and if he's able to actually make them last to the end, because this is a circuit where it's quite stop-start, but there are quite a few long and quite high-speed corners, particularly areas such as turns 11 and 12. So tyre wear, I mean, to be fair, of course, the option tyres only lasted really a maximum of about realistically about 4 or 5 laps. I mean, of course, it's really 4 laps really. I mean, Citizen was able to last about another couple of laps, but you saw the effect that it had effectively staying out there. He was effectively like driving on banana skins, so there was no point really staying out for much longer, because if that wasn't a clear enough sign to show that he had to come in to get them changed, I'm not sure what would have been. But these guys now, of course, are on the prime tyre. I'd expect most of them to go on you would expect the faster 3-stop strategy, because it means that they're on shorter stints for these tyres. It means they can push that little bit more, and they can take advantage of the grip that they've got to be able to try and pull those gaps. And making a 2-stop work means you're out on track for longer, but it just depends on how good you are on the tyres going forwards. Now, of course, we're looking here. This is the battle now for 4th, as Randy, I think, is also yet to stop, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But now we've got Minty now pulling to the inside to try and make his move on the Mercedes to head down towards turn 1. Now, Randy, I think, was one of the only drivers to start on the prime tyres. Of course, he's yet to make his first pit stop, and now Limitless all over the back of Randy. Remember, Randy and his teammate Ricky were both in McLarens last season. Now they've jumped to ship to Mercedes, but of course they retained the partnership, and and that's Limitless forcing Randy wide to give him enough room to make a pass, as Matty up front has caught Maisie also on those prime tyres, and he makes a move up the inside, finds the space up into turn 6 and through into the lead into second place of the race. But effectively that is technically the net lead, as we said. Powerpuff still leads also. He is out there on the prime tyres too, as the 2 Red Bulls start to make waves up through the field here. And we've got a replay. This is of KPTK on KR Martin. This is Williams on Marussia. And a pretty simple, straightforward pass again with the aid of DRS straight through into what is now 10th position, up into the top 10. So whilst that was all going on, we saw KPTK making his impact. His Powerpuff finally decides to get rid of those prime tyres and make his first stop from the lead, which now gives it back to xMattyG. And as he heads into lead mix 1 and puts it down. Interesting to see now what kind of strategy that the prime tyre runners decided to run. Back in 12th and 13th, though, 2 very capable drivers, Ricky C and Trace 92, not exactly having the best of fortunes, and it is a kind of a little bit of a fall from grace for both Ricky and Randy, because they were up there in the McLaren. They had such a great season 7 up there, fighting for victories and podiums, and now they're just having a really poor start to the season. I hope it's just a one-off and it is just an anomaly, and it isn't a follow-up for what's going to carry on for the rest of the season, because it would be a real shame to see these two not exactly fighting up there in the same way they were last season. So hopefully Ricky and Randy can turn it around. They can find a trick in the setup somewhere. And but already Ricky must feel pretty downhearted the fact he's just been overtaken by Trace Me in a Caterham. and I'm sure that he'll want to try and push that forwards. And also Citizen, who's made his pit stop, is also closing in, so I'll have to wait and see. But Ricky and Randy in both the Mercedes cars, they're struggling out there, Matt, and they're not having a fantastic time of it either.
Well, I suppose lap 1 had something to do with it, but I mean, both of them had really bad qualifying. So I think Ricky was about 8th or 9th, and Randy was outside of the top 10 and then forced himself onto the prime tyres. It's now Powerpuff on those super soft, very quick tyres, but they will degrade like no other in the next few laps. He goes up into 8th position, I think that was. But yeah, I was just saying that Ricky and Randy, with their poor qualifyings, they put themselves with the risk of getting hit, as now Ricky is having to wait for the Mercedes mechanics. And where is that Jackman going? He's going back round again, and he's got the different jack, and okay, now he's going to get lifted up after 10 seconds of sitting there. So Ricky's race has gone from bad to worse, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes home with absolutely nil points this afternoon in 15th place, and he is over half a lap behind the leader now. So Ricky's race is just... That's not really much his fault, to be honest, because they just sat there and didn't really do much. As we now have from race control, Exeter has been awarded 10 penalty points for causing a major collision at lap 1, turn 13. What I need to say about this is that obviously we haven't seen penalty points before. It's a new thing for this season, as we now have Powerpuff looking very feisty behind KPTK, coming through turns 11 and 12. But very quickly, the penalty points, or is he going to have a look at the inside? He's going to go in there. Oh no, he's going to go into Rich, so probably into the DRS zone. So yeah, penalty points is basically an extra kind of thing that the drivers can get if they cause a collision, or if they rage quit or crash out on purpose, that sort of thing. They get penalty points. And so I think the first stage of it is that they miss qualifying, and then it's a race ban, and then eventually, if they are too bad, then they get kicked out of the leagues. So that's a little bit of a kind of explanation of what that is, as Powerpuff now goes up into 6th place past KPTK and is making the most of those very fast super soft tyres, and he is having a great race at the moment, is Powerpuff, and it'll be interesting to see where he is at the end of the race, as Limitless is now coming out of the pits at the start of lap 11 on some fresh prime tyres. That's very early, that stop for Limitless, I have to admit. With 18 laps to go, that means 2 9-lap stints on the primes, which means he will be struggling towards the end of those stints, as Fizzy Fan is right behind. Obviously he hasn't pitted yet after his lap 1 incident as well, but Fizzy Fan obviously not having a great race, and as you can see, his tyres are starting to go off like no other, and I wouldn't be surprised, as it says on the right hand side of your screen, he will be coming in for a pit stop anytime soon. As we now cut to his teammate KPTK, who has just been passed by Powerpuff in 7th place, and now Learbot has come all under pressure now from Powerpuff, coming through 11 and 12. Powerpuff, I'm sure, is going to have a much better run, and is he going to have a look into 13? Hopefully we won't see something reminiscent of lap 1, but I'm sure Powerpuff has some more common sense than that, and he does, and he sits behind, and I'm sure he may well try the DRS move into turn 1 again. But Scott, it looks like there's no battle for the lead at the moment, and I'm sure, but with Limitless pitting early as Citizen loses the back end and just about manages to keep it, I think Limitless will be looking pretty good with the fact that he's on prime tyres and he's going for the undercut.
Yeah, but the thing is, as you said, he's got to do 2 9-lap stints on 2 sets of prime tyres, and the key thing is exactly how he manages those prime tyres towards the end of those stints, particularly towards the race end, because if he starts struggling or gets involved into battles and is invited to push, and he does take that up and he starts taking too much out of those primes, out of that rubber, then that's going to come back to bite him at the end of the stints, and that's going to really hurt him in his chances of staying up there in terms of a lead. Now Matty, of course, is running from the more default strategy, and that seems to be working just fine as Randy sweeps around, and we have actually lost connection to Limitless. So Limitless is actually out of the race, so that strategy is unfortunately all going to go to nothing, because Limitless has unfortunately disappeared, and that is an absolute nightmare start to the season for Limitless. The man who was fighting for 2nd in the championship now will come away from Australia with 0 points. So not a good start for him. Of course, it's advantage Red Bull, Matty, of course, and everyone else who will get themselves off the board in the top 10. Ricky C at least gives Mercedes something to smile about as he puts in the fastest lap of the race at 1:24.270. And now Limitless sits now being passed by his fellow GP2 graduate Tyrell Maisie now in the Ferrari. So both these cars Ferrari powered, as we can see Citizen going into Lee Mix 1 to try and save some fuel whilst he's in the draft. Matty, meanwhile, in for his 2nd pit stop onto another set of prime tyres and back into Lee Mix 1. He actually gets held because that was Rosberg in for his pit stop, so he's lost a bit of time. But the fact that he's so far ahead now, but Limitless hasn't got to really worry about him how he's out of the race. He's not going to be so much of a factor going forward, so it's really just the likes of Rosberg and, of course, Minty that he's going to have to try and be concerned about too much. As now Matty comes back out of the pits. Powerpuff now has the lead in with Toro Rosso, and Tracy comes in from 8th. And is he being that was quite odd. Now, I'm not quite sure what went on there. I didn't see his teammate was being held up, so that was quite a strange situation in the case. It looked like he had to stop into his pit box, kind of stopped for a moment, and then drove into it. So I'm not sure what went on there at all, but couldn't see anyone in, couldn't see his teammate in there at all. So that's rather strange. But he may have been, in fact, because there's confidence being passed by Learbot, who are on board with it right now, as KPTK now comes under attack from Randy into turn 4. And doesn't get the move done just yet, so Randy at least putting up some kind of a defensive effort on KPTK. Just quick note, KPTK and his teammate Fisi have got quite a bit of a history. They've been long-term friends, and of course, they were teammates before in leagues gone by. But of course, since they've had to break up the partnership because of other commitments, as now we go on board with Limitless, this is exactly what his point of view when he disconnected. So, and there we go, just simply heading towards turn 5, and that's it. Cars not going to. That was it. Race was over. As Ricky now battling with Fisi, they went side by side, and Ricky with a very classy outside pass on the Norwegians to take 13th place from him. So back to Citizen in 4th. He's holding station ahead behind Maisie. So intriguing to see exactly what state his tyres are in, as now he comes under attack from the other Ferrari of Tiro Minty this time down the inside. I did say it was Tiro Rosberg. That was last season that he was in there, and Minty taking advantage of a lot of grass on the inside there. That's a bit cheeky, using a bit of the infield to complete the move. I'm not sure if the stewards will agree with that one if they watch that back one, Matty, but for the moment at least, he may have possibly got away with that. Maybe.
Yeah, that was a very interesting move from Minty. You have to say that definitely was not the black stuff, and he took a lot of grass, so I wouldn't be surprised if Citizen might have something to say about that at the end of the race, but we shall see. 16 laps to go as KPTK come around the final corner now with DRS and a little bit of Kurz. He's going to try and either defend from Martin, or he's just going to sit behind as he watches Randy now look up the inside of the Continent and makes that move stick and up into 8th place. Continent's now down to 9th, and KPTK may well have a look as well with DRS, but Continent also has DRS to defend. Coming down towards turn 3. There's no moves and no changes of position just yet, but it looks like KPTK's got the better pace than Continents, who I think was in the pits. I think we just saw his Caterham flash away as Trace came into the pits, but unfortunately for Trace, he had to wait. As we now have a replay of Ricky going wide again. He has, I'm pretty sure, just given up, to be honest. He's going to finish the race, because I know Ricky would not rage quit, because he knows he's going to get penalty points this season anyway if he did. But I'm sure he'll come home with, hopefully the fastest lap. I think that's the one thing he will go for at the end of the race. As we now cut to Powerpuff in first position at the moment. His front left is absolutely red raw, and he understeered and had a potential look at that pit wall there, but he managed to slow down the car enough as he comes into the pits for another fresh set. I'm assuming is going to be prime tyres, as Citizen is now coming under pressure from Rosberg. Looks like Minty's actually starting to get away from Rosberg slightly as they go side by side round the final corner, but Rosberg will have DRS and will fly past the Sauber of Citizen, who looks like he is definitely trying to pull off a two-stop strategy, but that's really where he was anyway, was around 5th position, and he's still got to go a few more laps before he can even hope to change onto the primes and get to the end of the race without being about 5 seconds off the pace. So Citizen really has made an error of judgment there after a brilliant qualifying. So it'll be interesting to see if he can come home with any points, as KPTK now looking to the outside and almost hitting Randy. I'm not sure about that, but Continents looked like he pushed KPTK slightly wide and off the racetrack, which then meant he had to take even more avoiding action from Randy's rear end and his Mercedes. So KPTK did brilliantly there to not cause an incident with the Mercedes. And here we go, here's a replay. So Continents has gone to the inside, and let's have a look. Yeah, there's just a slight touch from that Caterham, which caused KPTK to lock up his brakes and then have to take avoiding action. He wasn't pushed off the track as such, but on Continent's screen he hasn't really done anything. He's clipped the back of the Mercedes, but he's squeezed him at best. But I mean, really, Continent should have thought better, considering he is from Italy and he has to kind of make sure that he makes allowances, I suppose, to people who are from a different country. So KPTK unfortunately down to 11th now and under pressure from Trace, and I'm sure he's still got gravel all over his tyres, and they're not going to be looking very good with 14 laps to go. Coming towards the end of lap 15, Trace now with DRS and the rest of his Curse is going to fly past KPTK and up into 11th place. No points at the moment for Trace after that lap 1 incident, but if he keeps pushing on, then maybe, just maybe, he might be able to sneak into the top 10. xMattyG still leading with Minty pulling away from Rosberg, but it looks like there's not much action at the front, Scott, but in the midfield pack there's action galore.
Yeah, that's what we love about AOR, is that if there isn't such a race at the front, there's always action going behind us. Citizen and Power get a little bit too close for comfort. They did just touch the inside right of Citizen Sauber, just just nudging the side pod there of Powerpuff's Toro Rosso, but they did manage to get away with it. And straight away, Powerpuff pulling a gap on the Frenchman so far as they head on forwards on lap 16, and KPTK almost getting into the back of Tracy, so he missed his braking point a little bit, but managed to get back on it and using up his KERS, almost half his KERS, to try and get himself back into play here to close it back in on the Caterham. I love this section of the track, it's just so good, 150 miles an hour through there. If we head forwards now, skip forward to end of lap 17, and with Citizen, and his tyres seem to be way past their best as he's power sliding his way through the final corner back onto the pit straight, and he really is struggling a little bit here. Intriguing enough also, I think it might be starting to cloud over just a tiny bit, so the bright sunshine that we had seems to be disappearing ever so slightly. We did have a 0 chance of rain, but it seems to be the sky's getting a tiny bit darker. It's not as blue as it was before, but that's not exactly what Learbot's thinking about. He's thinking about getting past this as he moves past into 5th position. So the Toro Rosso is definitely making moves up to the field so far in this middle part of the race. Definitely showing that they've got to, and there's you can see, look at the state of Citizen's tyres. The right rear and the front left in particular are absolutely shredded to pieces. The reason why he hasn't got any grip, and no wonder. And now he's coming under attack again from the Contadins. Contadins coming up. This was the car that Contadins drove last season. Now, of course, he's back in the Caterham. And look at that. Citizen's almost a sitting duck here as he comes down the back straight. And Contadins just breezes past in the Caterham. And he's up to 6th position. So Citizen's struggling out there. And I think he's got a lot to learn when it comes to F1 because, of course, he may be able to get away with running longer on the stints in GP2. But it certainly isn't going to work here at this point. It's Fisi's currently back in 11th place. Not exactly enjoying the same kind of form he had in the Red Bull. And of course, again, Williams having to adjust the fact that they're not up front runners at the moment. But of course, with both Fisi and KPTK, that could change going forwards in the next few races once the driver gets settled in. And Citizen surely has to come in, and indeed he does. So be very careful indeed as he tiptoes through the pit entrance and back into the pits to make what's going to be his second and I'm sure final stop. As he's got a long time on that set of tyres. And Ricky now back in, look at this, 12th and 13th for the two Mercedes, and Ricky's going to drop back even further now with his second pit stop. So, again, just despite the fact they had that incident on lap 1, Mercedes really are lacking pace at the moment. It's quite disappointing, especially with two drivers of the calibre of Ricky and Randy. We said it before in this race so far, but still, I'm surprised they really haven't made that much more of an impact, granted the fact they had that incident on the opening lap, but a little bit disappointing, and I'm sure they're going to be looking to Malaysia to try and improve their chances, because if not, this could be possibly quite a surprisingly difficult season for those two, and I'm sure everyone who's fans of both of them would not want to see that, Matt.
So on board with Powerpuff now in 4th position, having a brilliant race by the looks of things, still on those super soft tyres, so I'm sure they are starting to go off at a rate that, well, he's right behind Rosberg, in fact, actually, so I'll take that back. Maybe his tyres are not looking as bad as, well, Citizens, which was just horrendous, and look at the lag that Rosberg has in front of Powerpuff. That is just not, even if he had a chance to overtake, I don't think he will feel confident to even do it, as Rosberg comes into the pits now, so at the end of lap 19, so he's going to go a little bit longer on this last prime stint, as Powerpuff continues, so he's going to go for another lap at least until he switches over to the prime tyre, so Powerpuff could be sniffing a podium if he can put in a good in-lap and, well, be near Rosberg, and he'll have a little bit fresher tyres towards the end of the race as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Powerpuff holds his nerve towards the end of the race, as KPTK comes into the pits from 8th position, and Learbot from 7th as well, so he's switching on to another fresh set of primes and is released with no problems, unlike Limitless from last season, as we heard many times too many, as we now have KPTK just coming out of the pits, but Fisi is now being stacked. And we've seen this quite a few times. We haven't, well, last season I don't think I really saw that at all, but Fisi being held up, and we've seen this 3 times now, 5.5 seconds for his pit stop, and that's cost him even more time, and I'm sure this is going to be a race to forget for Fisi, as Learbot and Martin are fighting very hard indeed, going through turns 3 and now 4. You can see the arrow of Martin right behind his gearbox, and Martin's surely not going to go for a move yet, as this really isn't an overtaking position, but Learbot coming under immense pressure as he's come out of the pits. As you can see, he's 6 seconds down on his last lap, and Matty, the race leader, coming into the pits, his tyres not looking as bad at all, as he could run a optimum strategy, as Powerpuff's made the mistake that I was hoping he wasn't going to make, and that would have cost him at least half a second, maybe more, as he looks like he's going to come into the pits, and Matty comes out of his pit box without any problems, and Powerpuff now, it'll be interesting to see how far he is behind the final podium position, as Minty has already left his pit box in 2nd place. A decent performance from Minty, you have to say, and it looks like he is solid unless he makes a mistake to get second place and 18 points in the opening race of the season. As that was Limitless's teammate, in fact, Minty was, and I remember saying for Brazil at Season 7 how poor Minty's pace was, but he's definitely picked it up for Season 8, and maybe he'll be the dark horse to maybe get a top 3 in the championship. As we now on board with Leobot coming over the line to start lap 21. Who is that coming out of the pits? I am not sure. It might be Martin. It is indeed, as we now have Citizen in 11th place, finally on some fresh tyres, and is he going to get past the Caterham into turn 3? It looks like he may well just do it, but it's going to be side by side, in fact, going through turn 3 and down to first gear. But he's not going to get much traction on the curb, but he's still up the inside, and it's the Continent, in fact, and Continent maintains 10th position, going slightly off the track there. Ricky sets the fastest lap on a 23.4, so finally showing some sort of pace in that Mercedes, but I'm sure that he really isn't he's just putting everything down on the ground and saying, right, well, I'm not going to get any points today, let's just try and do the fastest lap possible, as we're now back on board with Citizen in the Sauber, out of the points at the moment, Scott.
Yeah, intriguing race so far from Trace. He's put in a great strategy run to go as far as he is, as Rosberg just trumps that fastest lap of 22.9 as he pumps in the fastest lap of the race. And Trace did well to get up to about 6th. He's now rejoining him back in P11. So the longer strategy worked for him initially, but of course he's come back out just outside the top 10. So again, like he did last season with Red Bull, he's got some work to do to try and improve that pace. And Citizen now once again hounding the Continents now, and it now means of course he is effectively position-wise in a Caterham sandwich, because of course Continent's ahead in 9th, Trace being 11th, and Trace will want to try and get himself a point to get himself off the mark for the first race of the season. As we watch ahead, that's now Rosberg and Continents going Martin and Continent, I should say, sorry, changing positions. Continents forces his way up the inside of the exit of turn 13. And Martin looking very racing indeed to try and reclaim that place, as there goes Randy into the pits in front in 6th in the Mercedes. So Leobot comes down the pit straight with DRS open, as does Citizen, as he watches now. He's going to start closing in ever so slowly on KR Martin in the second of the Marussias, as now KPTK, he's also closing on Trace. He has to try and make a move now for what is now going to be 10th position, as a couple of cars, of course, have made their final pit stops to round out the final set of stops before sprint to the finish. So KPTK back in DRS range again as he closes down towards turn number 3, 4 and 5 is complex here, and we head back towards turn 6 and 7. Skipping forward to lap 24 now. Citizen back down in 8th position, still following Martin as he goes deep into turn 13, rejoins, and Citizen just gets around him and gets himself up into P7. So that's an incredible bit of car control and reactions from Martin and Citizen respectively. As now we look at KPTK, he'll be in DRS range once again to try and get himself around Traceme. But is Traceme going to have enough straight line speed? He's got a decent run through the final corner, but even though using up all his curves and DRS, I don't think KPTK will be far enough alongside, or at least close enough to make a dive. And the answer to that is no, he doesn't. But it now means, of course, that it's now going to be, I think, what I can see, Traceme now chasing after KR Martin this time. Now the Constantines and both, also him and Citizen, have got around him. So now, of course, Traceme into the points in 9th, chasing after Martin now for P8. Just wait and see if he can put his fuel up to Rich Mix 3 and up towards turns 11 and 12. This is an awesome high-speed section, and Martin again's got it so wrong through that section. Look at that, that's easy pickings again for both Traceme and also KPTK, so it's all going wrong in these final few laps for KR Martin. Not exactly the start of the season he wanted. He dropped backwards, and Fisi fan trying to recover off a rather lackluster Ricky C. He's got single lap pace but not showing it, and he makes the mistake through turn 13, and this is going to allow Fisi fan up the inside, but Ricky keeps his nose in front for the moment, and again he's gone wide up towards turns 15 and 16, the final couple of corners. So Fisi will surely have DRS onto the pit straight once again, and it means now, of course, that Fisi is trying to just add even more misery to what's been a very tough race for Mercedes, Matt.
Yeah, really tough indeed, and Ricky's now coming under pressure with Fizzy with DRS and used most of his curves from the previous lap. Up the inside now down towards turn 1. They're side by side still. Ricky going slightly off the track. Fizzy having to back out of it because Ricky coming back onto the track, but now he's got DRS again because it is double DRS. Randy sets the fastest lap, but Fizzy up the inside now towards turn 3 and takes 12th position. So Randy, the other Mercedes driver, now sets the fastest lap of the race. So it shows that these guys really do have the pace somewhere in the car. They just can't seem to do it lap after half the lap, or at least not at Australia anyway. Ricky almost thinking about going up the inside of Fisi into this right-hander, but then decided against it. And now Fisi can now try and maybe look down the road. But as you can see on the minimap, he is very far behind 11th position. There's quite a cluster of cars going through that fast left-right at the moment, but they really are not close enough. Ricky's now lost the back end slightly, and Randy now straight through up into 13th. Randy flying at the moment by the looks of things, possibly on the super soft tyres, and that's the reason why, but we shall see. I'm sure Fisi will come under pressure if Randy is on those fresh super softs, as we're now on board with Trace right behind Citizen, who's got to get through the next 3 laps on those, I'm sure, much older prime tyres. I'm pretty sure Trace pitted on lap 21 or 22, whereas Citizen pitted on lap 18, and he's going to put it into rich fuel mixture, but I don't know if that was a little bit too late from Trace, but he's going to have a look up into turn 1 anyway, and here we go, down to into 3rd gear, well, for Citizen down to 1st, as he's absolutely gone into the gravel and lost another position to KPTK, as Randy now gets past Fisi, so he must be on the super soft tyres, as KPTK now locks up his front right and gifts the position back to Citizen. These guys just clearly, we said at the start they're hungry, but it looks like they just want to give each other positions at the moment, as Citizen's back up into 8th and KPTK down to 9th. With TRR Maisie in the final points paying position at the moment, and now he looks up the front left, so KPTK's tyres have gone completely, and he loses the position to Maisie, the Ferrari, up into 9th, and who's that behind as well? And they're to the left, and it is Martin, who is now going to try and retake 10th position and the final points paying position, but KPTK has managed to hold on to 10th position just about, and his tyres didn't look red raw, so maybe he's just been a little bit too aggressive on the brakes. But it's very interesting to see. He was locking up pretty much everywhere, but managing to get through that fast left-right pretty easily, as you don't really have to use the brakes, as that is Randy going straight off into the wall. He's lost his front wheel, as you can see on Ricky's screen, and Randy is out of the race, and I'm not sure if he's meant to do that, but he's lost connection, and not a great bit of driving from Randy there, as we now go to the, well, Matty started his final lap of the race. It's been a Noble-esque type drive from Matty this afternoon. He hasn't come under pressure from Minty or Rosberg behind, and with Limitless disconnecting, it was just pretty much handed on a plate to him, as Citizen and Maisie now side by side going through the penultimate and now the final corner. This is the fight for 8th position. They're about to start their final lap, and Maisie has got past Citizen, who is really struggling on those tyres, and he's got one more lap, one more circuit to do of the Australian Grand Prix, and I'm sure look, you can just see him understeering through turn 1, Scott, and Citizen is going to have to try and fight off KPTK for that final points paying position.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this man, we've hardly talked about him all race. That's because he has simply been dominant from the start, and it's exactly the kind of start he wanted, of course. We would have expected from Noble, of course, with Matty in close pursuit, but now it's his time to shine on the spotlight. And just on a side note, I'm pretty sure that Randy didn't want to throw that into the scenery on purpose. Of course, I think he'd rather prefer to keep it on the track and score some points rather than throw it into the scenery. But this man, again, what a dominant start and a perfect start to the season. The front row up there as well in 3rd, and again a race victory. What a drive.
So Manny now coming around the final corner and is going to take the opening race of the season at Australia. 25 points for Manny. That would have meant a lot to him, because he is going to lead the championship for the first time in his AOR career, as Powerpuff locks up slightly, but he is going to take a very solid 4th position. Rosberg finishes in 3rd with Minty, a great 2nd place, and Trace into the gravel and almost losing the car. And who's that gone wide as well? That's Continent. So possibly if Trace had not lost that on the front left on the gravel, he would have had a chance for Continent. He's still got loads of curves left, as Leobot comes over the line in 5th place. A great result for him, and Trace having to settle for 7th place. He fist pumps as he's got some points and is off the board and off the mark for the first race of the season. And Fizzy Fan now attacking Martin for that 11th place and just fighting for pride. Is he going to take it? It does not look like he did. And Ricky coming home in 13th position. Not a great drive from him. It's a race to forget. And I think he's going to take the fastest lap of the race. It looks like he's gone onto the super softs to take the fastest lap, and it's going to be a huge lap. We can see here 1:21.5 by the looks of things. That's almost as quick as a qualifying lap. But Manny takes the victory. 42 minutes and 9 seconds. A great result for him, and it looked pretty easy by the looks of things.
He really did, and like I said, we hardly talked about him all race, and he just got on with it, got his head down, and really did set the pace from the outset. Took the lead early on the first lap and just never looked back. So brilliant start, and of course for most of the rookies, great drives from Powerpuff and Leobot. Fantastic effort to get 4th and 5th on their first F1 outing, and also credit to Maisie and Citizen 4 for their first points in the championship, and also a point for KPTK on his return. I think in the top 10, great drivers all round. They all deserve to be there.
Yeah, fantastic. The race classification, xMattyG taking the victory from Minty and Rosberg, the two TRL boys on the podium, and great drives from them. Powerpuff finishing in 4th position. What a great 12 points that'll be for his championship. Leobot also a great drive in 5th, with the Continent in the first of the cage room, beating his teammate TraceMe92 to 6th place, with TRL Maisie getting some points on the board in 8th position. Citizen, what could have been for him with that strategy, finishing in 9th, with KPTK rounding up the top 10. Martin finishing in 11th, with Fisi Fan a poor result for him in 12th after lap 1. Ricky C also getting taken in by that lap 1 incident. Exeter causing that incident in 14th place, with TRL Limitless the only person to not finish with Randy. Well, I suppose Randy did crash into the wall as well, so those two didn't finish. Limitless disconnected, unfortunately for him, so 0 points at the start of the season. And the Drivers' Championship, well, obviously it is how they finished here at Australia. Matty leads the championship for the first time, with Limitless 25 points behind his teammate already, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great start to the season for all of them, like I said, and it's disappointing to start for the likes of Martin, Fisi, and especially the two Mercedes drivers again, as we talked about, and Limitless, of course. I mean, no points in the first race, but look at that, Constructors' Championship, how close is it already? 25 points, of course, with the maximum score from Matty, of course. The top 10 of the Drivers' Championship are a direct reflection of today's result of the opening round of the season. But look at that already, Toro Rosso and Ferrari locked into a battle for second, 3 points, equal on points with 22 points, and 3 behind Red Bull only. Marussia 4th with 15, 1 point ahead of Caterham. That could be a season-long battle, and so could the fight between Sauber, Williams and Mercedes, as long as they step up their game once again. But I have to say, an incredible start to the season, of course. All these new driver lineups have looked absolutely fantastic, and I think, to be fair, we could be treated possibly for a fantastic season 8. I really hope it, as I said at the beginning, is not an anti-climax. I'm sure we'll find out as we head to Malaysia next week, because, of course, I said, if we can carry on with this, I say roll on the rest of the season, because this has all the makings of an absolute thriller.
Exactly, and join us next week for the Malaysian Grand Prix, when I'm sure a little bit of rain may well spice up the action. Malaysia always being a track that has dynamic, lots of different weather forecasts. So join us next week to find out what happens. I've been Matthew Gallagher, and thank you very much, Scott, for commentating with me today.
Pleasure as always. We'll catch you guys in Malaysia. Hopefully it doesn't rain.
See you guys then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.